Are we all set, Adam? Yep. All right, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. We have Steve Games here today, so welcome, Steve, right? How exciting is that?
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Steve is literally the definition, if you look it into the dictionary, the man. It's this guy. And when it comes to real estate and what he's accomplished, and I think at the peak, Steve, you had 7,000 agents in your real estate company.
Yeah.
And you started with one.
Started with myself and one.
Right, right. And, ended up selling this company off to Warren Buffett down the road, which was, very exciting. I mean, just the fact of everybody hears that name and gets excited in here. And everybody was super thrilled to see you. And after the Fired Up Friday a couple weeks ago, I mean, people were just super jazzed to be here and have this opportunity. So, and we have a mix of people here from Associated Brokers, but it's also being fed out there to Coldwell Banker West, to Coldwell Banker Coastal Alliance, Town and Country. So it's being kind of broadcast out all over the place. So Thank you for being here.
I appreciate it more than you know.
All right, and Steve was already captivating everybody with his stories right from the beginning, right? I mean, John. So the minute he got here, he started, and I just saw everybody go like this. So you just got that experience. So I just want to jump right in and just, could you give us like a quick, and I know a lot of people know it, but a quick synopsis, a 1 to 2 minute rundown of your career and how it kind of took off like a rocket and what happened?
Well, I started my career selling. I would buy little pretzels, little separate package of pretzels for a dime, and I'd sell them at the school for 30 cents. Did really well with that. And then I ended up peddling cushions in the Hollywood Bowl.
Okay.
You rent a cushion here, it's kind of fast, but you rent a cushion here, it's only 15 cents on long children, real hard bands, apparently there's people ended up in the bottle. People say, hey kid, what the hell did you say? I'd say, rent my cushions and I'll tell you what I said. And they'd go, how much are they? Well, I said 30 cents. I said, okay, we'll take them, and it better be funny. So I would say, you get a cushion here, it's only 15 cents. It's a long show on a real hard bench. It's a pain reliever that's guaranteed not to upset your stomach, and the Anderson people never thought to put it in a bottle. People would crack up laughing, and I'd make an average of about $150 a night in tips in 1963. So in the Hollywood Bowl, and I got free tickets to the show. So I understood that selling was probably the most exciting thing in the world and probably the most rewarding. And so after I went to the Vietnam War, I graduated last in my class from Glendale High School in the late summer. It was not a good career. I'm not a student. I became a student of war, went to Vietnam for 8 years, came home, and I did not experience, by the way, Chuck, what people did where they talked about being spit on. I know that happened, but that's such a small minority of people. Really what I experienced was love and affection, and thank you for serving your country, and it's not your fault you picked the wrong war, and all of that kind of stuff. And I just love America. And so I'm a flag-waving nut. And if you're a flag-waving nut, what in the world could you possibly do that would be greater than get a real estate license? And I decided to do that. And I got my real estate license. I went to a class called Real Estate Principles. And I remember being in the real estate principles class, the guy stood up in front of us and he said, we're going to revolutionize the real estate business, my partners and I. And I thought, well, how is this is a night school teacher. What the hell is he talking about? And at the end of the class, he said that they were going to revolutionize the business by franchising it and calling their company Century 21. Think about that. Think about what this man did. He was one of four, and they founded the company, and 6 years later, they sold it for $100 million. Absolutely changed everyone's life, because franchise is the only way to go in the real estate business. Anything that's corporate, just stay as far away from it as you possibly can.
Amen.
It's absolutely a nightmare, and I have this saying, and I would give this to any agent, anytime, at the beginning, at the end, in the middle, wherever they are. Work for somebody who is in your business. Never work for somebody whose business is to manage you, right? And so it's people that are entrepreneurial, that understand the real estate business, that are the people that will treat you with great respect when it's tough and treat you with great respect when it's the best. So entrepreneurial spirit. I worked for several different real estate companies in my childhood. For lack of a better term, I was 25 or 26 years old, but I looked like I was 12. For anybody who thinks they're too young, You can't ever be too young for real estate. You just have to be knowledgeable. And so I encourage the youngest people to start in this business instead of go through 2 or 3 businesses they don't like and then make a decision to do what? To go into real estate business. Why start so late? So there's no more profitable place to be, and it just was exciting. I felt at one point that I had to be a very, very successful real estate agent before I could be an owner. And so I became a very successful real estate agent, and I did it in the moderate price range to low price range. So I did $12,000 to $100,000 houses for 3 or 4 years. And then one day I drove through Rancho Santa Fe in La Jolla, and I said, oh, my father always told me we put our pants on the same way, all of us. Why don't I just try to do real estate here? And so I became the high-end residential real estate broker of California, basically. And I did it as an agent first. And then I decided that if I was ever going to experience what my father said was what life was about, which was contribution, make a difference, I wanted to own the company, and so I did, but I never stopped going on listing presentations. So last week I went on 3 listing presentations. I enjoy that more than any other single thing you can do, and the agents enjoy me going with them, and I've been volunteering that for a lot of years.
Who wants to have Steve Games come to the listing?
The only thing you got to do every once in a while is you got to go, look, they've already listed, dude. You don't have to close them again. You don't go past the close. So it's that kind of a thing. And I suggest that what I have proven in my life is that for a top producer, Chuck, one of the questions I know you're going to ask me is, what advice would you give a top producer? And I'd give a top producer the advice that you have to remember you're a top producer, not a top manager. And you got to get help in management, and you got to keep producing. If I've seen people spoil their business, it's that they decide that they don't want to go on those presentations anymore. And I've got to tell you, the public wants you. If you're the brand, if you're the name, if you're the team leader, the public just wants to see you. And they want to see your boss. They want to see who owns the company. They want to touch. And I know we've gone through this COVID thing, and we've learned some great lessons, some fabulous stuff. Just this studio is an opportunity to talk to more people than we ever could. We could never hold a sales meeting and get as many people as we've got in a room here, much less the hundreds of people that are listening to us on video. So all of what COVID has given us is the best that we can possibly dream. But don't you think for a moment that it's going to replace your personality. It's not going to replace your personality. When I hug somebody, they're my client for life. And I don't hug them unless I know they're going to be my client for life. By the way, I'm not real aggressive. But I'm aggressive in some things, but not at hugging. So if you look at it and you say, keep the personality in the business, I would suggest to the top producer that the thing they have to make sure they never lose is their energy. They didn't become a top producer without massive amount of energy. And the word that I love the most in all the world is enthusiasm. And sometimes it doesn't come through the same way in a camera. And some people are shy on a camera, and they can't do what we're doing, Chuck. You can tell I'm shy. And I just think that top producer has to remember that it's not going to be any easier being the top producer than it was. There's some sense that somehow I'm going to get some relief up here. The only thing you're going to get is more money. You're not going to get relief. You're not going to have to quit working hard. You're going to have to keep working hard or harder, because management becomes a bitch. I don't care how you cut it. I've seen some of the top producers in the business just spiral down by 1 or 2 management problems that they had with buyer's agents, or they had it with their staff. I would also recommend to top producers to be very careful of how you pay the staff, because the staff is the staff for a reason. The staff is the staff because they don't and can't live from commissions alone. And remember, the moment that you give the staff a check and then you add on a commission, right, they're not taking the risk to get the commission and you are, and you're liable to end up paying them way more than you can afford to pay them in the end. So be very careful of how you hire people and how you have people on your team. And if you're going to have a team, please, as a top producer, pay attention to them. You know, there's two things you have to pay attention to every day as a top producer: your team and your family. You know, we forget about our family, and that's the last bit of advice I'd give a top producer. The moment you become a top producer, you have flexibility that you've never had before. You also have responsibility, and that responsibility has to be to your family. We got to wake up every day and remember that we have a wife or a husband or a significant other or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, whoever that is, they're counting on us. And remember, we're a scary group of people. We don't get a check. You know, you're not going to get a paycheck. And if you did get a paycheck, it would be for way less than what we make. The reason we make so much money is because we risk it every day. You know, every single day we're out there taking a gigantic risk. I mean, you know, somebody will say you're as good as your next deal. And that's not true, because we're building a career. And if we're following up on our career, if we're doing what technology has allowed us to do, from where we started to today, I can follow up with 500 people in a minute. Mm-hmm. You know, that doesn't mean to leave my personality, and when I get some kind of response back, what should I do? I should get in touch with them personally. But the idea to be able to work a technical farm or to be able to work a particular area is so much easier with the technology, the printing. Mm-hmm. Just the ability to get 4-color cards and get this stuff out and be able to do things both digitally and in print. Amazing. The other thing I think that's really critical is, if you're not spending money on yourself, you're crazy. You're crazy. You're the best possible investment. Don't you think, Chuck?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just babbled, didn't I, Chuck?
You know what? You did, and I liked it.
I'm sorry.
I went right down the rabbit hole with you. It's great. But I got a couple questions for you.
Yeah, please.
So you guys know, Steve's had 7,000 agents. He's had some of the top agents on the planet, on planet Earth. He's had them. So, and just real quick, could you touch on, when you think, like the first people that are popping in your head right now, when you look back and think about the really grandiose agents that you've met over your lifetime, what do you see that's like their commonality in their mindsets? Like, what do you see as the way they think, the way they operate? Is there anything that's common there?
I'd like to say that they want to make a contribution. I think they do want to make a contribution. That's how they ended up in the business. But they want to be rich. And they just want flat.
Who wants to be rich?
They want everything.
Good. Raymond, all right, you're in.
They want everything.
Right.
And they're jealous of people who have things that they don't have. Mm-hmm. And they're driven, and they're willing to put the time in. I was explaining earlier, I worked as an agent, and people will say, how could you do that, Steve? I work 16 hours a day. I literally never stopped. And I didn't go to I had a little drinking problem when I was younger, but I didn't go to a bar without planning to get a client, right? I didn't go to a gas station without planning to get a client. I didn't go to church without planning to get a client. I farmed everything. I just never did I ever get in a conversation without thinking, I think that guy needs a house.
Can I add on to that? So like this is what I hear is basically, you know how we talked before about like being intentional with your actions? Like I'm gonna go to church today and I'm gonna come back with a client.
That's right.
Or I'm gonna go to, whatever, but it's being intentional as opposed to like letting life happen. Yeah. What did he do? He actually went after it, and everywhere he went, everything he did.
What a shameful thing to do, go to church to get a client. God wants everybody to have a house. I did a deal one time. I was trying to sell somebody a house, and expensive house, big time. And he says, oh man, he was the hardest client. We were going to sell him a $2.5 million house, would be a $6 million house today. Found the perfect house for him. He said, can you tell me who the neighbor is? And I said, yeah, the neighbor is Jack Goodall. And he says, oh my God, I can't live here. And I said, how come? And he said, because Jack is my boss. I said, I can't live next to Jack. And I said, why not? And he says, I don't know what to say to Jack. How can I have a house as nice as Jack's? I said, your house isn't as nice as Jack's. You just haven't seen Jack's yet. He says, well, I'm going to have to pray. And I said, well, Jack is very much a part of the church. Why don't we go ask Jack? So I took him next door, and we knocked on the door, and Jack Goodall came to the door, and I said, you know, my client wants to buy this house, and he works for you, and you know him, and so forth. And we talked for a minute, and I said, why don't we all pray? You know, and you know, the Lord's got to be on your side when the Lord's got to be on your side. So all three of us got down. Jack Goodall, by the way, was the founder of Food Maker, right? And Duffy Oyster, who was the client, owned all of the food makers in Texas and was a hugely successful guy. We get on the floor and we start to pray, and we're praying and praying and praying. And I jumped up and said, what do you guys think? And they said, well, we don't know yet. And I said, the Lord told me you should buy. That you should live here. It should be great. They laughed, and we just bought. So they lived together next to each other for a very long time. I mean, you've got to take every moment of your day and think about the joy of selling somebody something. And I think of it in that vein.
So not only about being intentional, right? So you know what you want to
Yeah.
do. Here's the other thing I'm hearing is, and we talked about this a lot, like when you're really in the game and when you're in the zone, you know, like when the hot hand is Kobe and he's just sinking them, you, everywhere you went and everything you did, you saw the world through real estate glasses at all times. Like he delved into that to where, that's my guess, is like you don't see anything else. You don't see fish, you see somebody that sold those fish
Yeah.
that maybe wants to buy a house.
I didn't see a happy child unless they had a happy home. You know, everything to me related to the beauty of having grown up in a beautiful home with, and it wasn't elaborate. It was just home. Mm-hmm. And I knew when I threw the baseball in the backyard, and if I didn't pick it up, my father would tell me to, but it would be there when I came back. And I just feel so great about the American dream, and that's what you have to believe.
I mean, does he have a genuine feeling of how much he appreciates the gift of a home and real estate and stuff? You guys feel that? Like, that's like what we need to grab. Like, I love those three things.
Well, and Chuck, I've listened to you and a lot of the people in the company talk about, you know, creating wealth. And I have to tell you, I bought a house. My wife made me buy a house for $1,500,000 when I could not believe that I was tying myself to that kind of responsibility. Mm-hmm. I did a remodel of it. I lived in the house for 11 years. Mm-hmm. I had $1.5 million in it. I did a remodel for $4 million.
Wow.
And I sold the house. I sold the house in the depression of 2011, which was a horrible time for high-end real estate.
We all remember.
Sold the house in 2011 for $14.5 million.
Okay.
So when and if you're advising clients, you can make the biggest single change in their life by telling them the truth. You know, should you own this house, John? And Mary, should it be your house? And if it shouldn't be, you shouldn't sell it to them. You should find the house that is right for them. So a lot of people try to do the quick deal. I would suggest that if you're going to be a top producer in this world, stay away from the quick deal and get to the right deal. It's a very hard market we're in right now. I did hear somebody, Chuck, yesterday actually, one of the top producers in all history we were with yesterday, and his team did $550 million last year, number 7 in the United States, and number 1 in California. Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, he's just, they're crazed because they can't get enough to advertise. And you know, the market is not easy to be a part of because everything is selling so fast. Mm-hmm. I just looked at him and said, poor guy. I said, I feel so. This is the greatest residential real estate market in history. And I've been in it 51 years, and if it gets better than this, I'm afraid. It's just about that simple. And if you tell me I shouldn't.
No, that's perfect, because I was going to lead right to our next question. So what do you think of all this? What do you think of these rates? And you know, I mean, like, I was just talking to Gabby over there. She listed a house for $365. The seller wanted to go $345. This was on a Monday. By Wednesday, she had 32 offers, and it went for $441,000 cash. I mean, what do you think of all this, and how like, what's your mindset, and what do you think of the future of all this craziness?
Well, I can't help but try to foster my career by saying one of the things that I'm trying to talk agents into doing right now is value range marketing. I was the founder of Value Range Marketing, and it's perfect for this market because when you have that scenario, if the range is way higher than you think the house can sell for, right, the buyer doesn't think they're overpaying. So it's really, really working. We sold 3 houses this weekend in the $1.6 million to $2 million range. We sold them all at the $2 million number, and the seller was happy because we told them it was way more than the house was worth. But the buyer's happy because they didn't pay more than the top number in the range.
I love that. I mean,
Really
isn't that
worked
interesting?
extremely well. So if Chuck will invite me back to do a value range marketing
So basically,
class.
we can put a range in there and just say, well, what do you think it's worth? I have no idea. It doesn't matter. We're just going to put it from here to here.
Yeah, and the range should be bigger than the board will
Exactly.
probably
From 100
allow.
to $1 million. Here we go. Put it
yeah,
up.
it's really great.
I love that, though. I mean,
It's
I saw
really
some people
great.
shaking their heads. Good idea, right, Vic? I mean,
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
So I want to give you a little counseling on that. I'd love to teach another class on that.
So again, and I know you're not an economist, and you saw we had the economic review with Lance and all that sort of stuff, but I think it's a legitimate question. No matter what your answer is, it's okay. What do you think? What do you forecast for the next couple of years with what we're seeing right now?
I think we're going to see the hangover, very positive hangover of my home is my castle. I didn't realize that until COVID hit. And now that it's here, the husband had to go home and meet the wife, and the wife had to meet the husband, and they had to meet the kids, and we all had to live in a happy place, and I had to work from there. The value of a home became so significant in this, and I don't think it'll ever change. I think we have solidified, and particularly in San Diego, where we used to have. People used to say, well, let's move people down from Los Angeles. People don't want to move down from Los Angeles. They love Los Angeles. Are you kidding? They're crazy, but they love Los Angeles. They don't move from San Francisco or Portland or any. They're all moving now. And why are they moving? Because they realize that the single best environment in all of America is right here. So from just San Bernardino County down, we're looking at the greatest place on earth to live. And I think it's now more focused on than ever before. It's been a great thing for us, and it's made me sad because I'm a person who needs your vibe. If you weren't sitting here, I'd be uncomfortable. The people that are on the screen, I want to touch them all, and I can't. But we're going to see some change, and that change is to my home is the most valuable single thing I can own. With paper money that we're printing by the zillions, right? Interest rates can't go up very fast. And I think interest rates are going to hold, and as long as interest rates hold, the best single investment in your portfolio is a piece of property or several pieces of property. So I see the market staying strong for the next 5 years.
How about them apples?
Yeah.
I mean,
I really do.
The hand clap over there. She's like, you mean we get to make this kind of money for longer?
You do, and I don't mean it's going to be easier because obviously we have a terrible inventory shortage. But inventory shortage we get people building. When it gets tough enough, we get the rules changed. That regulations have already started to change to loosen up on the ability to be able to build a little bit, and we'll get more housing.
I would agree.
And remember, it's an expensive place to live. I think if I were to say something that I would like every one of you to understand, whatever home you're buying in Southern California, you're paying double what it costs to live anyplace else. So if you're buying a $250,000 house, is that the number that I was hearing?
Like 400, but yes,
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
okay, $400,000 house. If you're buying a $400,000 house, please remember when you're talking to that buyer, they're rich. These are rich people. You made a choice to spend everything that you have to buy your home. And in California, they deserve the very best respect possible because we can go to Virginia and buy 4 times the amount of house for the same amount of money. We don't have to have cars because the bugs fly us around in Virginia. It's just a different world. But with that said, please don't ever think that anybody buying from the least expensive condominium, they're paying double per square foot what you're paying anyplace else. They're rich. And they're choosing a rich lifestyle, so let's treat them with the respect they deserve.
Okay, all right, I like that. And I like the 5 years. And all the economists said the same thing. They said that they're not seeing any signs of anything slowing down. But okay, what about this?
And Chuck, I didn't listen.
Oh, really?
That really is my opinion.
Well,
And I want you to know that I'm really glad to hear that somebody agreed with me.
I mean, you guys all know this, but so when Lance was putting it all together, Peter was here when the economists were talking, and they said, well, so Peter, what do you think is going to happen in the market? And I'll just paraphrase, but he said, I really don't give a shit. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, there's opportunities, whether it's going up, going down, going sideways, going left, going right. He goes, it doesn't matter. He goes, it's just about your mindset as things shift and change.
The first person, whether it was Zig Ziglar or Mike Ferry, whoever it was, they made that clear to me when I was very young, that it didn't matter what the market was doing, because if I was willing to rise above the average agent and do more for less sometimes, not commission giveaway, but do more for less than other people were willing to do, the bottom line was I was going to be rich, and it didn't matter which way the market was going. People need us when they're selling. Right? They need us more when their property is devaluating than they need us when their property is evaluating.
I would agree with that.
So no question, we're always needed. 51 years, and I've never, ever, ever not had enough business.
Okay. All right.
Right?
Yep. Okay. So here's the next one for you. When obviously we talked a little bit about mindset, and I think that we would agree that the top producer mindset is seeing everything as real estate. Whether you're going to a ball game, whether you're going to a bar, whether you're going to church, it's like just constantly thinking about that. But what about the way? And I'm not talking about the agents that buy leads, but what about the way these top producing agents that you've seen over your career? Again, he had 7,000, right? So what about the way they do their business? Like, what do you see as the kind of commonality among the way they operate their businesses? Is it with their people skills, with whatever? Is it all people skills? Is it contact?
No.
Like, what do you see as being the keys there?
No, I had an agent who did 300 transactions in 1 year, never saw a client. Never saw a client. In fact, I went to court with him a couple of times because they said that they shouldn't have to pay him because he never showed up. You hear about him all the time.
So he was a genius.
What he was, no, I couldn't do
300 deals, though.
I couldn't do what he did. He made, the last year that he worked for me, he made 38,000 phone calls.
Okay.
Recorded 38,000 phone calls. Well, his name's Chris Heller, by the way. Heller, the home seller, and he ended up being the president of Keller Williams for a while. He has the personality God gave a crowbar.
If you're watching, we apologize.
Yeah, it's okay, Chris. You know I feel that way.
I'm totally kidding.
It's just he just does not have what it takes. But when he got on the phone, he had the best personality of any single person who ever got on the telephone call. So I would encourage you, no matter how successful you've been, to start doing more of what works for you, right? I remember sitting in a sweat hog class, and they said, Steve, how many doors did you knock on today? And I said, 25. They said, how many appointments you make? I said, none. They said, tomorrow you knock on 50 doors. See, that doesn't work. If I knocked on 25 doors and I didn't get any lead, I'm no good at it, right? I either have to change what I'm doing or quit knocking on doors. So I was not a good door knocker. I got a few leads every once in a while, and you have to try it. You have to get out there and do it. But I was better at going to events, and so I went to events. I was terrific at farming, actually. Once I had gotten the hopes of the community heading in my direction, I think there's a big opportunity. I think during COVID, a lot of farming stopped, and I think during COVID, a lot of people retired. And I think there's a lot of really valuable locations where people have been for years that they're not going to pursue. And I think that the idea that COVID's changed everything and we're not going to have to farm anymore is crazy. And I think the first thing that people are looking for is to be hugged and to be loved and to be seen. So I suggest that as soon as we can get rid of the rules, that we do farms. And I think geographic farms are a very big future from a very, very good past.
One of our top producing agents just put out a huge flyer, like this big, double-sided, color glossy, and you said that you're vindictive or not vindictive? Did you say you are or you're not?
I'm kindly vindictive.
Okay, well, so am I. Yeah. Okay, so
I can forgive you if you want me to.
So we had an agent leave, and kind of took a few people with him and stuff, and I said, we're going to go after their farm. Just for fun, because I'm a little bit vindictive too.
I mean, that. Yeah.
And I think about it, I wake up. So we put up these big glossy things and we send them out, as just listed neighborhood stuff of what's going on in this neighborhood. Hit the direct neighborhood, and now she's taken 2 listings off of these big, full-page, double-colored, glossy, full picture of her all the way up. And then we started, you guys know, as a company, for every listing we take, we do just listed cards for them the minute it comes in.
You guys are so lucky.
So far, we've taken 4 listings in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, look, people say that print is dead. If you believe that, you're crazy. I promise you. I've only been accused of being a genius in one category. My whole family are true geniuses, rocket scientists and physicists and all kinds of stuff. But I am a marketing genius. There's no question about it. You don't build a company of 7,000 people behind a brand that nobody'd heard of. You don't then come back into the market with Sotheby's and do it again, right, without being pretty good at marketing. I suggest that you take as much as 20% of your entire income and allocate it to advertising and marketing through print and through online.
I agree. And you know what? I mean, I think that's proof positive, guys. Like as we've seen all these just listed cards go out and the return and all that sort of stuff, and Vicki, you've been doing it for years, but I don't know if you've gotten away from it. But we do know that geographic farming works. Raymond, that's Raymond back there. He came from the car business. Raymond's going to do really well, and I think you're right. I think if you go back to the start and really were to try to build your business, a geographic farm is key.
Yeah, it's big time.
I mean, and Mike Zing and some of our top producers say exactly the same thing.
Well, and look, I'm going to suggest something about advertising that you should lock into your head, and I mean this as sincerely as anything I'll ever say. If you spend $1 on marketing, you have to spend it on something that requires you to work, right? So if you send out a card and you don't follow up on the card, you shouldn't have sent the card. If you run an ad in a newspaper, I do this all the time. I take the Sunday paper, which I'm a big believer in. I've always been a big believer in the Sunday paper because it's weekly. And if you're buying a house and your agent gets just a little shifty on you and you think maybe you haven't seen everything, what do? You go to everything that's printed that week and you look at it, and then if you like your agent, you go back to them. If you don't, you call somebody else. So the Sunday paper to me is always something that I call every ad that our company does in the Sunday paper every Sunday. And I get 3 out of 20 people that answer the phone. I've gotten people that never called me back from the ad. Don't run the ad if you're not going to pay attention to the lead. Don't send out postcards if you're not going to pay attention to leads, if you're not going to go into the community and try to touch people, because they will know who you are. There's no question. But you have to back it up with the hard work. Advertising and marketing are just simply the opportunity to force you to work harder. It's that good. And run an ad, do an open house, and then don't hold it open. What in the world are people doing? And we are going to get open houses back, by the way. And
hallelujah for you new people out there.
New people. I've asked a panel of people. No one on the panel did less than $100 million in the year that I asked them. Right, $100 million in $100 million in sales. Not one of them. 7 people on the panel. I asked them, what would you do if we took everything away from you and you had to start over? And we dropped you off in a city you'd never been in a helicopter. I'd hold an open house. It's always their answer. It's always their answer.
5 days a week until they had tennis courts.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's by far the best way. But if you don't follow up and you go to the open house unprepared, I went to an open house one time and a guy's in the chair like this. And he's kind of watching a game over here, and I think and he worked for me. Oh, bad. And he didn't recognize me. Oh, really tough. And he pointed me to the restroom and said, just take a look around. And he said, I said, can you tell me a little bit about the house? He said, no, just look at it. It's the effort you put into it. How many signs can you put up? How many times can you door knock on a Saturday if you're holding a Sunday open house? What in the world are we doing advertising open houses from 12 to 3 or whatever, or 3 to 4? What in the hell are we doing until the sun is completely gone? Until there is no hope left for a single person to even just crash their car in front of the house, we do not leave. What for? And please, don't disregard the security. I understand that there are criminals out there that can bother us, make sure everybody knows where we are, make sure you have all of the criteria, but open houses are super.
Agreed. I'm going to go back real quick.
At any price range, by the way.
At any price range, of course. I'm going to go back real quick. When I was asking you about, just so that I can paraphrase, when I was asking you about like what do you see as the similarities in the way they run their business and stuff, the top producing agents, and you kind of you referred to the gentleman that didn't meet anybody for 300 transactions and all that sort of stuff. But I think the kicker is, and what I heard from you, and what I think everybody would agree with, is it's finding what you're good at.
Finding what you're good at, and then being disciplined. Discipline is something that Mike Ferry, from my perspective, was the first person to bring real discipline to the real estate business.
Agreed.
And he was a hard ass about it.
Oh, he was. I saw him through many people out of rooms.
But I can tell you that the people that follow Mike that deal with the discipline are always much more winners. It doesn't replace personality, which Mike doesn't have, but
no, he doesn't.
But you know what the hell Tom does, and he should have kept him around. Apparently, just take a look at how that's going. But these guys are heroes of mine, and they taught me discipline. The military taught me discipline, and I think some of us came from jobs before we came into the real estate business. The more disciplined the job, if you're outgoing, the better it is. And I also think that some of my top producers had to become more outgoing, right? They had the discipline, and so they got the leads, but they were having a hard time with the conversion. And we actually role played with some of the best people in the business. I've actually sat and role played with them, and I think role play is with a group like this, role play is a really great thing to do.
We need to talk more about that, Vicki, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that. So, so finding your niche and then being disciplined in whatever it is that you do. Hey, Michael, can you pull up a mic for me in a minute? So that being the case, so we kind of figured out, that with mindset. What about and you guys all heard the story, right, about how he built the house that he built down in Mexico. As he graduated up from coming home as, may I paraphrase your story a little bit?
Sure.
So he came home as a sailor from the Navy. Was coming across the Golden Gate Bridge. Saw a bunch of girls in a yacht that were trying to get everybody to come to their strip club that night, and he said, "I'll own one of those." Yeah. And it was the yacht, and he meant the yacht, not one of the girls. And and ended up buying a yacht someday and finding a huge piece of land down in Mexico. And how big is your house that you built down there?
47,000 square feet.
His house down in Mexico right now is 47,000 square feet. How many bedrooms?
22.
He has 22 bedrooms, and how many pools?
6.
6 pools in the house, and he owns this right now down on La Paz. And how much beachfront?
Well, just in front of the house is 550 feet of beachfront, but I own the whole beach, so it's
the whole beach. So
a mile.
So John and I were talking earlier, and I'm sorry.
It's so fun.
Well, okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm starting to get pumped up right now. Like, when you hear those kind of stories, I get pumped up. And here's why Steve's the man. And John and I were talking about this out in the hallway. You take the risks and have done the work to really live the dream that I think we've all wanted to live, right? I mean, this guy is doing it and has done it. And if you listen to him and if you watch him too, so he's passionate about the business. He's passionate about finding clients. He's passionate about finding agents. Is passionate about it to the point where how many times and this is a compliment to you, but how many times have you seen him get really sappy and upset? Even when the meeting got started, he started to get emotional over the fact of, after he sold his first house and, they put up a sign and they got you the steak, I'm sure, right? They made him
He did give me the steak, by the way. That is the punchline.
And they were all praying together and and that's when you found your purpose in life and you knew why you were here.
Yeah.
But it's just exciting to be around somebody that is actually living the dream and doing what we read about in the books of going and making those things happen. So when it emanates from inside you, and you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but the biggest principles to your success, if you could pass on to Raymond back there and you wanted to see Raymond sell his company to Warren Buffett for $500 million someday or something, what would you tell him are the principles that you need to live your life by?
Profit is directly proportionate to risk. You should write that down. Profit is directly proportionate to risk. John Maynard Keynes was economics guru of my time when I was young, and he said, if you don't risk, you don't profit. And that's not to be stupid. That's to take a calculated risk that you invest your own money in. I remember talking to a group of people, top producers from the whole country, and I was at the Ritz-Carlton in Orange County, and I said, how many of you invested more than $25,000 in your business this year? And I got very few hands. And I said, how many of you put more than $25,000 into the stock market? And they all raised their hand, right? And I said, that's pathetic. You should be ashamed. I'm going to take a break because I don't even want to see your faces. And I said, but before I take this break, I want to say something to you. I want every one of you to pull your money out of the stock market right now, this minute, get it out of the stock market and buy 2 more houses. I said, just do it. Just, oh yeah, he's a real estate broker, what the hell does he think, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're real estate agents, it's what you do. You run teams, this is where your money belongs. And poo, you know, Qualcomm crashed the next week. 2 of my agents lost $2 million apiece, all right? The real estate market went completely berserk, and we've got to invest in who we are. We've got to be who we tell people to be. And the passion behind that is amazing.
So invest.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Right. So whatever you get, invest it. And I love that. You know I love that.
And take that 20%, you know, think about what you can make. If you took 20% of your net income for 2020 and invested it in good, solid marketing that creates a requirement for you to work, how much money would you make the next year? You'd make as much as double. You can still double your business, and some of you are really old. You know, look, it's something I just really want to make a point. You are just as old as you feel, and if you walk in to a group of millennials feeling old, you're toast. You're absolutely toast. If you can't relate to what happened in the news today, right? If you don't understand what they're thinking, you're not going to go anywhere. And you have to have some kind of a knowledge. I suggest to you that you read more than you have ever read, whether it's online or not, and you know more about what's happening than ever before, because right now it's germane to whether they buy a house or don't buy a house, and whether or not they should buy a house while the market is escalating and they're thinking, well, we'll just wait until it comes down. Boo. That's a really bad plan. That's a bad plan. The interest rates are the lowest they've ever been. They're going to stay low, right? But let's get it while you can, and let's not miss the opportunity. So invest in yourself now. And as we're coming out of COVID, the opportunities are limitless. I mean, you cannot have a bit. We've got all of the lessons of what we learned with COVID and what we can do remotely to tie together with what we can do by just taking ourselves out and getting out there all the time. And it's just an opportunity I've never seen before.
Okay, next question, and then we're gonna open it up if anybody has any questions, because he doesn't have much longer here. So my next question, Steve, would be, so you've lived a great life. You've got your house and all that sort of stuff. However, we all have things that we would have done differently.
Oh, no kidding.
Right, and my question would be, looking back now, what would you say? I don't know if it was a mindset shift, if I should have done this, I should have done that, but what things would you have done differently if you could reset yourself back 40, 50 years, or 51 years when you got your real estate license?
Well, I don't know that any of you have met my partner, Nida, but at some point you will. And Nida was, you have to look for someone, whether it's an assistant or whoever it is, that is your yang, right? You've got to look for somebody that can help you, because you can't do it all yourself. Whether it's your wife or your husband or somebody on the periphery that literally becomes your superstar person in your team, you've got to have help. But I remember sitting across from Warren Buffett, and we had worked for him after we sold the company. We made more money working for him than we did selling the company, which is what he plans for you to do. So I worked for him for 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years I was retiring, and Warren said to us, he said, Steve and Nida, I hope that you have kept the money that I gave you for the company, because if you have, you're going to be rich for the rest of your life. And this is the world's most powerful investor talking to us directly, first name basis, friends. And I thought to myself when Warren said that, no, Warren, too late to give me that advice. I said, but my partner Nida is going to be rich for the rest of her life, right? I spent it. I spent almost all of it. I, at one point, had 7 boats, had one in Alaska, one in Hawaii, one in California, 2 in Mexico, didn't know where the others were. Had 2 jets and 4 pilots. I did, and I won the Cannonball Run. I had cars lined up as far as you could possibly line them up. I did everything that you can possibly imagine. I spent every dime. Don't have a single regret. Do not have a single regret, but I don't advise it.
So there it is.
Take 20% of every single dollar that you make and put it in a bank, and the bank to me is real estate, right? So save it, keep it. Don't put yourself in a position. Listen, guys, I don't hurt for anything. I have enough money to be very successful. My family does not hurt for anything, but I could have truly amassed a lot of wealth that I didn't, and that's a regret for me.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, so it comes back to that 20%. That's the advice.
Yeah, you got to invest in something.
So,
and you got to have holding power. When you put the 20% in, make sure you can afford what you buy, and then just keep it.
Right.
I bought Demi Moore's Porsche. I remember buying Demi Moore's Porsche. She gave it to her husband. They flaked out, and she didn't want it in the garage anymore, so she sold it to me. I bought it for $120,000. I sold it for $180,000. That's a good investment, right? It sold last week for $600,000. So you should have kept it, dude. You know. So keep the house. Don't sell the house.
So that being the case, Raymond, and everybody else who's out there in TV land, basically putting 20% aside is the key. And you know my theory. You know how I'm crazy about that stuff. So I mean, 20% of that. I mean, it's like the Mike Tyson story too. It's like if you're not investing pieces of that, you can find yourself in trouble later.
And my partner has everything. She has absolutely everything. She's not working right now. She's consulting for us a little bit, but she has everything. And she lived a tremendous life when we were. Mm-hmm. She just flew in my airplane instead of me flying in her airplane.
That's funny.
Now she has an airplane.
So does anybody have any questions? Before we get out of here, would anybody like to ask him any questions before we roll?
First of all, Karen Vargas has been chiming in Facebook the entire time.
Okay, what's
and
Karen
she
saying?
said, one of the things she said, lead gen is not the maker of the deal, it's the follow-up. That ties in right into what you were saying.
So yeah, trying to generate.
She
the
loves
lead
everything you said.
Well, look, I believe that if we invest, if we have a good team, if we have a good assistant, good transaction coordinator, all of that kind of stuff, that we can get the leads. There's always enough leads. I call them, and this is very archaic, but I call them nightstand leads. We have more leads that we didn't follow up that are sitting on our nightstand or on our computer than you could ever imagine. We could all get rich from the leads we didn't follow up on. Karen's 100% right. It's the follow-up and then bringing your personality to the game and offering more than anybody else. When I go on a listing presentation at any price range, I give them a written marketing plan. And I sign it and they sign it. Why? Because no one else does it. Because everybody else tries to tell them what they're going to do marketing-wise and then hopes the house sells before they have to do it. I hope that I get to do it, right? Because it generates more leads. A sold property in the newspaper creates more business than a property that is not sold yet. Because I've got the script. And somebody says, I'm too old for scripts. I don't need to learn this. Well, you have learned the script if you've been in the business a long time. But I encourage you to go back and look at scripts. People say, well, if I memorize the script, I'll lose my personality. What personality? When you're frightened of somebody because you don't know what to say, you're frightened. And you have no personality. Get a personality by memorizing the thing and then change the script to the exact words that work best for you.
Right.
So you can never quit learning. I have a top producer that I just love who absolutely 100% he's old, so he never gets in a car. He still uses his cassette player. All cars have cassette players and we just don't use them. He still uses those to listen to tapes. He goes back to all of the great tapes. He does all of the new stuff. He goes to seminars every day. He's 75. Don't ever quit. Don't quit learning. Question, anybody?
Anybody else? Mike Duffy.
First of all, Steve, thank you so much for being so generous, not only with your time, but your wisdom and the stories that you share with us. Curious, with working 16 hours a day, did you have any daily rituals that kept you going and provided you that extra oomph to keep going day after day with your hectic schedule?
You know, I know how well that works for people. I know how important rituals are. For me, every moment has to be brand new. And so for me, my requirement was to know that I could find something the next day that was brand new for me. One more challenge. And I had great people around me. My driver, and by the way,
My driver.
you,
Sorry, keep going.
if you're making $250,000 a year, you should consider having a driver. It's something that I recommend to everybody. You know, if you can pay somebody $43,000 or $50,000 a year to be your Boy Friday, I would do it, because one, they organize you. So I wouldn't get in a car without having in a limousine without having 3 newspapers to read. I had my whole schedule planned out. William would make me get places early because I told him if he didn't, I'd kill him, right? And so, yeah, there were rituals to what we did. We would pull up. I'd meet clients at a hotel, right? And I'd always get there first. And when they arrived, William had arrived for the concierge at the front desk to call them by name, open their door, say, "Mr. Games is waiting for you in the polo room," or whatever it was. And we treated people. I spent so much money making sure that every moment I spent with somebody was first class. And ritual was never, never, ever don't get up. I was thinking about it, and I got up early. I stayed late, and I called my wife and my children 7 or 8 times a day on the road. My brother died not too long ago, and 10 years ago, I guess, and I inherited his children, had to raise them, and he called them every single day. Every single day he called me. He was a busy man. He traveled the world. And so when he died, I had to call him every single day. And I think we got to take just those few moments in that 16 hours and make sure that everybody knows we love them. Because without that, you can't keep up the pace. And then I think, I don't like the idea that when I get, it's a Tom Ferry and Mike Ferry deal where you get the phone and you say, we'll call you back on Monday. I say bite me to those people. I don't want to call you back on Monday. I'm going to the next person to buy my house. This is a 7-day-a-week job. But there are times when you just have to say, I'm going to take 10 days off, and I'm going to go literally enjoy every single bit of my, and every bit of effort with my family. I always talk about you have to make your schedule based on the client's time. So client time is the most important time. It's not your time, it's the client's time. Whenever the client needs you is when you have to be available. That means that you might miss Johnny Jump Up's birthday party, right? Well, if you miss Johnny Jump Up's birthday party, you better figure out some way to replace that in his or her life, your children's life, because without them, there's no reason to do the work.
Right.
So let's make sure that we get them involved. And by the way, I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcohol drug addict. I drank a 5th of Jack Daniels every day for 10 years. I worked through it. I still had the discipline that was necessary. I was very successful while I was drinking, but I got 7 DWIs. I did two hit and runs. I worked at night. I worked all during the day and then got to go to jail at night. I've been at the bottom. I understand that. And if you have family members or you have a drug problem, get some help. Right? Get out there and get some help somehow, because, and if you want to call me, I'm available to talk about it, whether it's you or your wife or whoever it is. So debilitating, and we need we need to stay away, and the drug problem has gotten worse as COVID has gotten longer.
Agreed.
Yeah. So anything I can do to help anybody. Jack Daniels is great, by the way. It is the greatest single drink.
All right, so
34 years I've been sober.
which is impressive. Congratulations. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of our time. He has another appointment he's got to jump on in 3 minutes, but Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. One more round for Steve Ames.
If we could take a
You know, sometimes, guys, because I am myself, I heard you talking about your smile, and I think that a smile's worth more than all the rest of the things we can do, and we've been holding those smiles back because of where we've been. My hope for the country is that we'll be able to go out and smile at everybody again very quickly. And God bless you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And we have one more thing. Go ahead, Adam.
Yes, if everyone could put in the comments what they feel their strongest lead gen skill is and what the lead gen skill that they need
let's
to work
share.
on. If we could type that in the comments, that would be great.
And anybody out there, if you guys can share this video and to just put it out there in the world. I mean, Steve's got some great stuff from, exploring the things that's gone on with him to, just the great theories on Top Producer. So please share this on Facebook if you can. Steve, thanks again. And hey, we are out of here. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
What a beautiful place, you guys.